What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, managing editor, FightfulMMA.com, FightfulWrestling.com. It's August 6th, 2019. We're in between Newark and Uruguay. Joe, what do you got going on?
I just noticed the new screen, and I'm like right up to it, so I'm trying to back up. But yeah, all is well. Hope everything is well in your world. Everyone, thank you for tuning in live. Bit of a disaster trying to sign in to this show today, so I apologize to everyone. Sean probably knows the drill, but yeah, when computers crash, a minute before you go live, you're like, So yeah, all right.
Well, guys, reminder, I will be in Toronto this week, taking in a lot of stuff there, getting a lot of content. If you're around, say hi to me. If you want your question or statement read on the air, donate a super chat, any amount that helps us pay podcasters, writers, all that good stuff. Tim Trafer donated one and said, just ate 2 sandwiches and had 2 glasses of tea. Working on my 3rd glass. Thinking about you, Sean, when I drink my tea. Watching. That is the single greatest super chat message I've ever gotten. Let me tell you, buddy, we got ourselves a lot in common. But we've got UFC Newark to talk about. This will be a bit of an abbreviated show. There's not a ton to kind of discuss in this MMA world as of right now. But some news off the top. I'm going to kind of switch up the format. Johnny Walker faces Corey Anderson later this year. I think this is the right trajectory, Joe.
Yeah, that's a fantastic fight. I mean, I've been paying attention to a lot of the Johnny Walker stuff there and Corey stuff over the past, week and a half now, 2 weeks, with even John Jones causing some havoc with anything and everything with those guys. So that's a good fight for the division, to say the least.
I like it. It makes a lot of sense. It's not a top 5 guy, but it's a guy that's kind of near it. Well, maybe, I don't know what the hell Corey Anderson's ranked. I haven't done a rankings video in a while, but I'll pull it up and look. And, hey, that's what we'll do. We'll break down the rankings this week. Joe, I know that you have access to them. I can't screen share anymore, unfortunately. But let's take a look at the way that all these rankings have unfolded before we get into what happened at Newark. Pound for pound, Khabib jumps John Jones. I don't know how I feel about that, but Dustin Poirier is up 2 spots, as is Stipe Miocic. Robert Whittaker dropped down 2 spots. Tony Ferguson up 1. McGregor down 2. You see all the movement there. Even though none of these people fought last week, what does that say to you?
I don't know. Sometimes the rankings, I feel like when they get updated, it's like they've corrected themselves. And sometimes I think, well, wait a second. There was one last week that you and I were talking about that it's like the guy didn't even fight and he moved up 3 spots. And the guy that did fight dropped 1. I didn't understand. And 1 and he dropped. I didn't understand how that went. But in looking at some of these, I mean, I don't know how Khabib can be above John Jones just yet. I could see where people can make that argument. But John Jones right now, he's probably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport. Khabib number 2. You can say DC is the best because, 2-division champ, light heavyweight and heavyweight. So, remains to be seen.
An interesting bit in the flyweight division. Sergio Pettis moves up a spot. Tim Elliott down 1. Brandon Moreno up 3. This pushes down Rogerio Bontorin. Jordan Espinoza, Ryan Benoit, all down spots. Not a lot really to talk about there. Again, no movement, but Sergio Pettis back in that division apparently, now that I would assume that he knows that it's hanging around. You have Dan Hooker, number 14 at debut. This pushes down Islam Makhachev. But the real movement came at welterweight. Now, here's the thing. UFC says these were updated Monday. But I'm sitting here looking at Colby Covington, number 2 behind Tyron Woodley. Are you looking at the same thing I am?
That is correct.
What? How in the hell does that make any sense? You see Leon Edwards jump 8 spots to number 4. Everybody else pushed down 1. But Colby Covington doesn't move a bit? Huh?
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And all things considered, after the performance he had on Saturday night, the guy's a true number 1 contender. No ifs, no ands, nor buts. He should be number 1. And again, the UFC doesn't make these rankings. They are voted upon, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what people are voting on.
I just want to look at the panel right here. There are a couple people maybe 2 or 3 people I've ever heard of on there. A couple. So not a lot of movement anywhere else except for heavyweight and women's flyweight. Shabnil Abdurakhimov up 1 spot to number 9. Ivanov up 1 spot to 10. Walt Harris jumps 3 spots to 11. You have Alexei Oleinik falling 3 spots. Tuivasa 1. Marcin Tybura 1. That's about right. I think Walt Harris should probably be right above Blagoy Ivanov, though, to be honest with you.
Based on performance, yeah, since Blagoy's come over, he's done good. Don't get me wrong; he hasn't done great. He's done good, but Walt Harris is on a tear right now, especially with these quick first-round knockouts or first like in the minute. So he's doing pretty good. But again, we go back to every time we talk about Walt Harris, how he said in that post-fight interview, maybe 2 fights ago, I think it was, when he said, "No one can match the speed that I have in this division." Well, now that you're number 11, you've had a resurgence in your career, or basically a renaissance sort of thing. It's been revamped. Now you're starting to move up. You're starting to get in. You're 3 spots away from Cain Velasquez, Sean Ross Sapp's favorite active fighter, and of course you're getting closer to Alistair Overeem. So
we'll talk about that in a minute. But Jennifer Maia up 2 spots to number 4 at women's flyweight. Joanne Calderwood down 1. This pushes up Alexis Davis 1 spot. Andrea Lee up a spot. Roxanne Modafferi down 3 spots. There's no way these are current rankings. There's no way that a panel updated these this week. Piss off, rankings. We'll update you later. But Cain Velasquez was active this week, Joe.
I heard. Tell me.
He had a very impressive debut in AAA. Now, here's the funny thing. I posted this video about look in pro wrestling and size and all this stuff. When you look at Cain Velasquez, he does not look like a pro wrestler. He looks a little bit flabby. It's just the way that he's built. So he gets in that ring and he does some things. And here's the thing, Joe. When we think of Cain Velasquez, we think of one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, one of the greatest big dudes of all time. In wrestling, he's just a fair-sized guy.
Wow.
And then he runs off the rope, does a back roll off of someone, then a running head scissors Hurricane Rana, before he then does a springboard off the middle rope, turns around and does a tornado arm drag. Like, you would have to see it to understand, and you would look at that and you'd go, wait, him? Cain, the guy with all the injury issues? There are little body language things that happened. Cain Velasquez looked incredible.
Sounds incredible.
Like he did things I couldn't believe that could do. He did things that you would think that are not his strengths. Now, he did a good high crotch. He said that he's even thought about teaming with Daniel Cormier, and to be quite honest with you, sign me up.
Get her done.
Sign me up, bro.
I will watch that tomorrow. I'd watch that in a heartbeat. That'd be fantastic.
You want to talk about a couple of guys? Oh, by the way, Joe, Josh Barnett runs a show called Bloodsport. Yeah. A couple times a year. No pins. It's only submission and KO finishes. Easy for MMA people to transition. Our Killer Cross of Impact Wrestling. He runs a show that ran at Future Stars of Wrestling, Natural Born Killers a while back. Gina and Dave Mazzani both competed at it. You had Stephan Bonner there. You got all kinds of people there. Tom Lawler's made the transition. This is one of the reasons Fightful exists. This type of thing.
Yep.
And Cain Velasquez impressed. Are you surprised that he did that well?
Well, based on your assessment, based on your description of the moves that he was doing, and yeah, I mean, if you think about Cain Velasquez, you think of a rough and rugged fighter, great wrestler, just pound the crap out of his opponents. You don't think of an agile guy that can pull off some of these moves that you would see in a squared circle. So I'm happy for him. Very impressed. I mean, I'm assuming you saw it all. Did you notice any sort of like, you mentioned the minutia of some of the stuff that was going down, but did you see a happy Cain Velasquez, a guy that was really enjoying himself?
It sounded like it. Everybody that I spoke to at AAA said that he was great to deal with. He worked ahead of the match. He was just very easy to deal with. And that's a promising omen. I mean, he says that he's got 2 more dates confirmed for this. Also, I like the UFC allowing these people to step out and do this, especially Cain Velasquez. That's a big show. This was the biggest show in Mexico this year that he did this on, and he was one of the featured performers. Wore a mask during the match, too. Man, Somebody said Ronda Rousey opened that door. Fighters can continue to transition. She did not open that door. That door was open decades ago.
Yeah.
Decades ago. In the major leagues of pro wrestling, Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn helped open those doors. Ken Shamrock especially helped open those doors. Most
dangerous man in the world.
Yeah, Kazushi Sakuraba opened up those doors. A lot of other people did that. No disrespect to your comment, but yeah, I would love to see that. What I don't love to see is Mayhem Miller gets a 1-year prison sentence for violating a protective order. This guy needs some help, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, I could have told you that a long time ago. I remember interviewing him, I think it was before The Ultimate Fighter with Bisping. Was it Bisping? Who did do The Ultimate Fighter with? Was it Bisping? And doing some of those pre-fight interviews, even talking to his manager back in the day, we'd sit him down, and it'd be an absolutely hilarious interview. Like, he had us in stitches and funny, and then I'm just kind of looking at this guy. Ooh, there's a wire that's loose. Something going on here. Something really going on here. And then I started realizing, oh man, this guy could use some help right now just to calm things down. Like really, really not high strung, but just amped up. Like, you need to calm down, dude. You need to calm down. But it's unfortunate, man. This is a guy that definitely needs help, in my opinion.
Dana White might need some help. I don't know what he's thinking bringing back Tough. He says he doesn't want it to ever go away. I want it to go away soon. I can't remember the last time I cared. There have been
it was gone.
A couple of times, a handful of times. The women's strawweight or situation or flyweight situation, just out of default, I cared. When they start divisions, I care. When it's for a title shot, I care. But man, this is just damn.
Excuse me. What is the in 2019, August 2019, Sean Ross Sapp and everybody on the live chat, what is your definition or reasoning behind The Ultimate Fighter? Why have it? Under what pretense, under what purpose does it serve?
None.
None.
They found a significantly better concept in Contender Series.
Thank you.
Now, the thing is, they want to use that to push Fight Pass, obviously. Because why wouldn't they? Or is that on ESPN now?
I don't know.
Don't know who the hell's got it, but they want to use it to push service. Tough. I mean, let's be honest. Compared to whatever ESPN gets for drone racing at 1 in the afternoon on a Saturday, Tough might beat it. So I kind of understand.
Vinny, hold your thought. Vinny Fernando, hold your thought. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Vinny Fernando says, I'm indifferent about Tough, but hey, we're saving those for super chats. We'll read people's comments on the air when they send those super chats. I'm indifferent about Tough, too. Some success has come from them, but at the same time, it's such a dead concept. It's beyond the point of burnout anyway when you got these 6-7 hour shows every week.
Yeah, that's the exact conversation I had earlier on today. I met with a realtor on the other side of town for lunch and for a coffee, and he knows me from the UFC world, and we were just talking about things have changed so much in Canada and blah blah. Is the UFC still on television? Is the UFC still actually on? And I'm like, yep, still going on. I'm still in and doing this and doing that. Like it's we're talking about The Ultimate Fighter back in the day and what it was all about and the reasoning behind it, and things have changed so much, and it happens in any industry, Sean. It happens in any sport that. Content can get stale if you don't change it up. You ride the wave until it starts dropping, and then you've got to make changes. And yeah, they've done that with The Ultimate Fighter. They made a variety of changes. They've had many different types of themes for a season. But nowadays, you can do a lot more with YouTube than you can do on television with The Ultimate Fighter. So there's a bunch of different ways that the UFC could take advantage of promoting fighter and building stars and getting people. I mean, it's for The Ultimate Fighter, considering you have Dana White's Contender Series, The Ultimate Fighter really serves no purpose other than a reality show to see drama, 16 guys or girls inside of a house under a microscope, living in a fishbowl, and just, potentially going nuts in the house if that's even what happens anymore. Because for fighting purposes, look at the stuff that you've always said since day one when you watch The Ultimate Fighter. You fast forward until you get to the fight. And that's what Dana White's Contender Series is for. Just get us the fight. if you want to build stars, there's many different ways of doing it. I don't believe the Ultimate Fighter is required.
And Dana White said in this sit-down interview, when somebody wins off there, they become somebody.
No.
Who's asking for Juan Espino to fight? Mike Trezano, Brad Katona. Nobody, I mean, Tim Elliott, because he got that title fight, maybe. Andrew Sanchez? Kamaru Usman wasn't somebody when he came off there. He earned that.
Yeah.
He had to get there. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Well, now it's time for what is, quite frankly, the main event of this podcast. In that same sit-down interview, Dana White, whose words I don't think are as definitive as many are making them, says, if Cyborg wants, because he made sure to say at the end, if she wants, he will release her from her contract. He will draw up anything that refutes their right to match whatever offer she might get anywhere else. He said that Chris Cyborg and her management wanted to face Cindy Dandois and Pam Sorensen instead of Amanda Nunes. He said he's got documentation. Now, what I don't like is Dana White caping for the fact that he said that he made the comments and like comically like made fun of Cyborg's physique because she looked like quote unquote Vanderlei Silva. Now, he brought up her drug test. That happened. She failed a drug test. Making fun of somebody's appearance? Nah. I don't get that. You could just say she looks like she's on PEDs. Just say that.
Yep.
To then cape for what you said, that's dumb. However, Joe, there was a wrinkle here because after all that happened, after Dana White came out and said what was on that video that Cyborg posted wasn't it, Chris Cyborg came out and apologized, saying he's right. It was edited together by my production team to make him look bad. I apologize for that. Joe, I want your thoughts first on all this. There's a whole lot to get into.
I can sum it up very quickly in just that it's the whole being in business with Cyborg and Cyborg being in business with the UFC has always been a debacle. I don't know if Dana White from way back, before Strikeforce or Elite XC or whatever it was, has had this bone to pick with Cyborg and or her people. It's just been carried on over and over and over again, month after month, year after year. It's like he couldn't maximize what just my opinion, but I don't think the UFC could have maximized the revenue they thought they could have generated by signing somebody like Cyborg. That it's just bitterness. It's just bitterness towards her, and vice versa. She doesn't want to take anything that he says, and there's so much broken telephone, miscommunication, different things that come in and out from both camps, whether in person, whether on social media, that it's a reality show that's on social media. That's all it really is.
I've said for months, if not years, Joe, that whoever runs social media for Cyborg, whoever handles that end, whoever handles the management end, I don't want to name names because I don't know the guy, even though he blocked me on Twitter and would try to refute all this stuff. That person does not truly, if they have Cyborg's best interest at mind, then they're dumb and they don't know business, because all the things that I've heard, this stuff, chopping up your boss's footage to make him look like shit to gain sympathy, when you know they got cameras backstage, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Hooking your social media up to a bunch of spam sites, that's dumb and makes you lose credibility. There are going to be people that cape for no matter what. Showing up at the Performance Center, WWE's Performance Center, unannounced, that's dumb. Running a story on your social media when you're trying to leverage WWE against UFC and having the balls to publish a story that says, oh, Ronda Rousey refuses to re-sign with WWE if they negotiate with Cyborg. Wrong. She's under a 3-year deal. Everybody knows she's under a 3-year deal. Reached out to WWE, categorically false. Shot that shit down. Ain't hard to get a comment. Why would you do that? It's dumb. Going and asking for these cake fights so you can forever have the what if thing, Cyborg doesn't need that. She's talented. She's very good. Trust in your fighter. All this talk about brand building. Beating Pam Sorensen doesn't build your brand. It builds a brand of what if, what if, what if. Get rid of that what if shit. If you want to wrestle, go wrestle. If you want to beat up cans, do it. But leave Cyborg, let Cyborg do it, god damn it. Don't sit there and put all this trash on her social media that the people that are smart enough can see through. The editing of the footage, the posting the spam links, the posting outright fake fucking stories. It's stupid. Cyborg is one of the most talented female fighters of all time. She does not need that shit. She does not need the Cyborg versus the Authority thing. She doesn't need it. Everybody knows that it's her versus the Authority. Everybody knows that somewhat begrudgingly she was hired. However, they did also pay her when she was in Invicta. They did that. They did also, I believe, pay for a nutritionist when she declared that she wanted to go to 135 and never did it. That was a thing that happened. Yeah. They did want to book her in the Staples Center against Ronda Rousey. Her management, whoever the hell it was at that time, wanted more money. Understandable. That was a big fight. I'm not going to fault them for that. But all these things that are out there about Cyborg and how she's been wronged, yeah, she's been wronged quite a bit, but she's done her fair share of wronging too. The making fun of her appearance and like miming that's stupid shit. That's such dumb, inexcusable, ridiculous shit. And it's clear that Dana hasn't grown from that, which bothers me. But, like, hey, Cyborg is well within her rights to go make six figures somewhere to punch somebody and watch them fall over. And I support her ability to do that. But, man, there's a lot of blame to be thrown around on both sides here. And the sooner that relationship ends, the better for me, because I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of all that. And almost none of it is from Cyborg herself. Almost none of it is from herself. It's her management and Dana White. Hot damn, there we go.
It's almost like you want to say we want the relationship to get better, but nah, end it. Just just let it go.
With Ray Elby and Dana White, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's perpetuated as if it's Cyborg and the UFC. It's not. It seems like it's Ray Elby and Dana White. But you never hear those two mention each other's names.
Ever.
And that's the weird thing to me. UFC Newark happened this past weekend. What'd you think of that show, Joe? Up until, it's funny because the fight that got all the attention, the main event, wasn't great, but the rest of the show was really fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the exception of the Darko Stosic fight and Kennedy's low blow special fight. Yeah, it was a pretty good card. I was impressed, man. You know, Mickey Gall did what he had to do. But if I was thinking, and I was talking to a friend of mine about, she was talking about. Anyways, remember how my truck got broken into last week?
I do.
Yeah, and we were just talking about women's, because we actually found a video. We found the dudes, and I submitted it to the police and stuff like that, and. It just got into a weird conversation. You know how people are, if that happened on my property, I take a bat to him or her and blah, blah. And, my running joke whenever I hear stuff like that is, no, you come onto my property. It's kind of self-defense. I'm allowed to use my elbows until the police show up. And it turned into this thing where a friend of ours, she's like, I've never thrown an elbow in my life, but I see your UFC people do it all the time. I bet you that hurts. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a bone hitting the skull, and then in the Lucy Pudilova-Antonina Shevchenko fight, Lucy nails Shevchenko with 3 monstrous elbows that split Antonina up, and I'm like, this is what it looks like when a woman throws a beautifully executed elbow. I didn't show her the end of the fight where she ended up losing, by a rear naked choke, but that's what stood out to me on this main card, or on this UFC Newark card, is Lucy Pudilova's beautifully executed elbows that Shevchenko some way, somehow ate and eventually choked out her opponent. And, of course, main event, Jim Miller, and the co-main event, of course, with Clay Guida. But, yeah, I enjoyed the show, to be honest with you. I liked it.
I did, too. And I tell you what, UFC shows don't need to be 6 hours, but if they're 6 hours and they start at noon Eastern,
Yeah.
boy, sign me up. I'm all about it. I can dig that. I can get behind that. That way we're not working until 3, 4 in the morning. But there was some good stuff on this show. There were some ref issues on this show. Some of them called for, some of them not. Like, there were some spots where, quite frankly, Herb Dean wasn't going to see anybody tap. But there were a couple where a fighter went around and tapped on both sides, and Herb Dean just did not have his eyes on the hands, and you got it, Joe. What could he have done differently?
I'm trying to remember which fight it was where he didn't see the tap. Was it the?
I think it was Trevin Giles.
Trevin Giles, because Herb was on the other side, paying attention more to the choke, which is fine. But then eventually looking over to see if the tap occurred, and then by the time he realized it was way too late. So
yeah,
there are a few there where I'm not going to fault Herb Dean, only because to be in the right position is one thing. Safety of the fighter is number one, and looking for the tap is extremely important. But sometimes the way the body is the positioning of the fighter's body puts them in a situation where you can't really see the tap, and you can't really see. You still got to pay attention to other things. So I'm not exactly going to fault Herb Dean on all of them, but there were a few that he just got caught in the wrong spot when the submission was going down. So
Lauren Murphy got a big win. Matt Schnell with a big win. He's a flyweight that's finishing fights. He, in my opinion, is somebody to look out for. Mickey Gall gets a big win. I don't know if his sister having to force him to run to get his cardio on track is the most promising thing in the world. Claudio Silva keeps looking good after he's come back after years. Miranda Granger beat Hannah Goldie on very short notice. But on the main card, Scott Holtzman and Dong Hyun Ma had a great fight, man. That was a blast. Also, Darko Stasic just blasted Nchekawu's ball sack across the cage multiple times to the point of where it cost him the fight, Joe. What can we do? How will his balls ever recover?
As someone that's been hospitalized for, we'll call it the term that you're using before, I see that kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh, no. How are you? 5 minutes is not a lot of time, but how these guys do it, thankfully it didn't connect the way it was probably meant to connect. Good, but keep fighting. But my goodness, I don't know how these guys do it sometimes, man. I don't know how they do it.
So my thing is, Nchekwu, I want him to cut a bunch of weight, and I want Bryce Mitchell to gain a bunch of weight, and you got Bryce Mitchell, whose balls got caught in like a drill, I think.
You're terrible.
Fighting Nchekwu. That's the right way to go. That's the smart thing to do. I like it. Gerald Mearshart won, as we mentioned. Nasrat Hakparast won, beating Joakim Silva via KO.
That was sick. Yeah.
But the two big fights, big quote unquote, Jim Miller and Clay Guida. It's one of those fights. This reminded me of Ben Henderson, Showtime Pettis, the second one, because I went into that fight, and usually I'm like, oh, I want to finish. I want a quick finish. In that fight, I was like, I want them to go the distance. I want them to go back and forth. I want a war. I was ready for this with Guida and Miller. Instead, Guida steps in, tags Miller. Miller tags Guida, chokes him out, and it is a humbling thing to watch as Clay Guida is on his knees, passed out, and the ref has to hold him up. Jim Miller has now won 3 of his last 4. I love it, man. I love it.
But the reality of the 3 victories in the last 4, what do we do with Jim Miller?
Yeah.
Right? What do we do with Jim Miller? Because that loss to Charles Oliveira was all of 75 seconds, and that was something that shouldn't really happen to Jim Miller, which was a rear naked choke.
Did you ever think we'd see a time where 5 straight Jim Miller fights ended in 3 minutes or under?
No.
Because I don't think he ever had, in the UFC, or ever, really, I don't think he's ever had back-to-back fights that ended that quickly. Much less 5 in a row. But he ain't wasting time these days.
The Gomi fight was quick, but other than that, no, everything was, it's strange. I mean, it's not like, Clay Guida's a bum, right? Definitely not a bum.
Yeah.
Alex White's a tough guy. Gonzalez is a tough guy.
He had won three. He had won 3 or 4 going into this fight.
Yeah.
And we talk about cage miles. Sorry to interrupt. Jim Miller's making quick trips to the grocery store. He's not like driving cross country here. He's getting in there and getting out.
Yeah, listen, I'm happy for him, but after the fight, when I realized, after the post-fight interview, and he's talking about, I want to have one final run here, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's possible. Listen, I wish the best for him. Great guy, but he's 35 years old. Tons of MMA mileage on this guy. He's got 45 professional fights. I wish the best for him. I mean, he was one of those guys that I was thinking about. I started running through my head. I'm like, who are some of the best fighters in MMA that have never had a title and or have never got a title shot, right? So, he's one of those guys.
I would like to see him fight Alex Hernandez, number 13, younger guy. I kind of like that one. But Colby Covington just drubbed Robbie Lawler. And I saw people online who had the balls to say that this fight was fixed.
No, they didn't.
God, and some people that
said that.
Yeah, lots of people did. Somebody even said it to Masvidal, and there was one person I respect that actually said it, and I was like, "Oh man, come on." A guy thought about fixing a fight a couple years ago, didn't, and still did jail time. Still did jail time. If that happened, the commission would be in trouble. The company would be in trouble. Both fighters would be in trouble. Management, agents, the referee. A lot of people are implicated. That did not happen. Colby Covington is a better fighter than Robbie Lawler. You can like Robbie Lawler all you want. You can dislike Colby Covington all you want. Robbie Lawler got beat everywhere. On the feet, at every range, in the clinch. Colby Covington was a better fighter, Joe.
I didn't have a chance to look before we came on the air. Have there been any reports that Robbie Lawler was injured or broke his left hand?
I believe so. I think he had a hurt hand early in the fight.
Okay, because watching the fight,
but it's Lawler, man. He's not gonna use that as an excuse.
No chance. No. The reason why I say that is because, again, my son and I are watching the fight, and he's gonna ask me flat out, "Which one is your friend, Daddy?" That's the one I'm going to root for. I said, well, my friend is quote-unquote friend would be Robbie Lawler since I've known him since he was a teenager. I don't know Colby very well. He goes, I'm going to go for Robbie Lawler. I said, okay, well, let's root for Robbie. Let's see how he does. Colby's younger and he's higher ranked. And, oh, yeah, that Colby guy is like number 2 and your friend is like number 10 or 11. He's going to lose now. I said, no, let the fight play out. So we watched the first round, and then I'm sitting there, I'm watching the second round, Sean, and I'm like, I look over at Thomas. I go, you see how that Robbie guy is standing? That means his left hand is his powerful hand. He's like, yeah, but he hasn't thrown it in a long time. I go, well, he's going to eventually throw it. Dude, we got to the end of the third round, and I'm like, this thing's not good. Something is going on here. Robbie is not throwing that left hand at all. And we run back, and I'm like, he hurt his hand in that first round. He's not throwing any power bombs. Or power punches. He can't because it's got to be busted. Something's going on there, but this is Robbie Lawler. You think no matter what kind of injury he's going to sustain, he's going to go as hard as he can. And it wasn't until I think the last minute of the 5th round where he started throwing it again. And then it got into the theory of maybe he wanted to see if he could sort of get Colby Covington to waste a lot of his gas and get down to somewhere empty and then take over the fight.
Not
that
happening.
Still didn't really. Yeah, Colby Covington's got cardio for days and days. So it was a tough fight to watch if you're a Robbie Lawler fan because in essence he looked like a punching bag or a target bag for Colby Covington to just take advantage of, connect with his punches, take down at will, control at will. But if you're a Colby Covington fan, you just saw a guy that's got just the stamina and the just the cardio for days and just dominating opponents. And can he do that now versus Kamaru Usman? So.
What I think was a bigger story in the grand scheme of things was Colby Covington and who he was able to get to promote this fight. Because
yes.
and I'm not trying to I don't care about the politics and I don't care about any of that stuff. I mean I do, but not here. That's not what we're about. Donald Trump tweeted about this fight. 15,000 retweets. He tweeted, straight up tweeted.
Yeah.
And he said, "Fight hard tonight, Colby. You are a real champ." 15,000 retweets. Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. were there, took pictures with Colby Covington, put him on the phone with the president. You could not buy that type of publicity if you were the UFC. Now, there are some people that say, are there going to be people who actually stop watching the UFC because of this? I doubt it. But are there going to be people that are so tunnel visioned on Donald Trump that now care about Colby Covington? Yes. And the proof is in the numbers, Joe. What numbers am I looking at? Well, how about July 25th and July 26th? Do you know how many new Twitter followers Colby Covington got on those days combined?
I'm curious to know.
15. In the days following his fight, do you know how many new Twitter followers he's gotten?
I'm going to go in the thousands.
Try 10,000. 10,000.
Wow.
So roughly since Fight Week started, he has went from about 68, 69,000 followers to where he's well over 80,000 now. It's still less than Kamaru Usman, oddly enough. But this is publicity the UFC couldn't have possibly bought, Joe.
Yeah, it's...
although they kind of did buy it.
Yes, yeah. I don't know the dynamics. I'm never going to be someone that really... spews his mouth about politics. I just simply don't follow politics, Canadian politics, let alone American politics, unless it's something specific. For example, for my case, the housing market, mortgage-related stuff, I've got to pay attention. Sanctioning and regulating mixed martial arts in Canada, that was when I was big into with politics and understanding the dynamics there, lobbyist groups and blah, blah. When it comes to the US of A, what real politics do I know other than if I'm flipping through the channel and I stop on CNN or Fox or NBC or an American channel where they're talking about something that Trump did that was absolutely crazy or said that was absolutely crazy, or if there's something happening overseas in the Middle East or whatever, and I'm paying attention to the relationships between the various parties. So when you got a guy like Colby Covington now who can get on the phone with the president of the United States, and the president of the United States' sons are there, what does this really all mean? Is it, at this point, like, it's more than a gimmick.
I'll be honest, people like that love their mascots. I'll just say that. They love somebody who has a megaphone and can say the things that they're thinking or maybe aren't that confident in saying themselves. UFC Uruguay. No post show this weekend as I will be in Toronto.
Hold on, Sean. Hold on. Before we get to that, because I'm so excited that you're coming to Toronto, I think we should quickly discuss Colby and Kamaru.
Yeah.
What's your take?
Well, let's go ahead. Race is going to play a big role in this build. But I don't... Yeah, it will. But I don't think it will between Colby and Kamaru. Colby Covington is smarter than anyone gives him credit for. He will not go there and use something like that to build this fight. I don't think. And I don't think Kamaru will bring it up unless Colby brings it up. But there are going to be a lot of people that do bring it up, Joe. This is going to be one of UFC's bigger pay-per-view fights this year. It is also going to be one of the most boring pay-per-view fights this year.
You think so?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Kamaru's never been taken down as far as I know. He does a lot of his damage on the ground. Colby Covington, by far, does his most damage on the feet. Like, a lot of people don't realize that. But the significant majority of his strikes come on the feet.
Well, I'm very interested in seeing how this fight plays out. I think Colby wins.
Yeah.
I think Colby wins this fight. I think he does. I think somehow he's able to figure out Kamaru or out-pressure him or land that one punch, but I think it's going to be absolutely... As long as Colby doesn't psych himself out, he wins this fight, in my opinion. If he for one... minutia, just a slight... Kamaru's a good fighter, he loses his fight. Because Kamaru will play games with you as well, especially in the octagon. But I think Colby's is crazy enough and strong enough to realize, you know what, I know what I'm in for. Let's do this. I'm sorry, you go against Robbie Lawler and put on that type of performance, you're tough, man. You're a smart fighter. You're a good guy. And I think he's a very intelligent guy. Although his gimmick does make me laugh sometimes. Like it's like that I legit, maybe it's my age, Sean, and everyone tuned in right now. Sometimes I look at some of Colby's stuff, and it's like a little brother where I'm like, yeah, I'll let you have that spotlight, but shut up. Now you're being an idiot. Stop. Right? But I'm down for it. I love it. All day, every day.
Also, I love that Robbie Lawler isn't retiring. You know, when anybody gets beaten, everybody's like, retire. No, he stood in there for 5 rounds with Colby Covington and got drubbed, but hey. But we do have UFC Uruguay this Saturday. A reminder, guys, subscribe to youtube.com/FightfulMMA Boxing. These shows will go up after they are live, as well as clips, previews, interviews, lots of stuff like that. Individual fight reviews after fight night shows. I will chop up those and post them. But we've got no post show. We'll be covering that on next Tuesday's MMA podcast. You have Ariana Carnelasi, a +150. Talia Santos, a -170. I don't think that fight's happening, though. I think that fight got pulled. Best Fight Odds needs to update it. Alex De Silva, a -265. Rodrigo Vargas, a +225. You have Alexei Kachenko, a -155. Gilbert Burns, a +135. Chris Gutierrez, +120. Geraldo De Freitas, a -140. Rulian Paiva and Rogerio Bontorin, just even odds at -110. Then you have Cyril Gain, a -430, a giant favorite. Rafael Pessoa, a +345. Bobby Moffitt, a +125. Enrique Barzola, a -145. We then get into Oscar Picoda, +180. Rodolfo Vieira, a -220. Humberto Bandone, a +110. Luis Garagori, a -130. Pollyanna Viana, -115. Veronica Macedo, -105. That was about 10, 11 fights where nobody knows who the hell these people are. You might know Pollyanna Viana. You might know Gilbert Burns. That's about it, Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised Gilbert Burns is +135. You better put that in your I got 5 on it.
Yeah, I'm bringing that back. I keep forgetting it.
Yeah, no, that Gilbert Burns at +135. Take nothing away from Shevchenko. Yeah, you can give me Gilbert Burns because he can turn a fight any way he wants. Strikes obviously with submissions, and he's a tank. So I'm interested in seeing that. But again, it's perhaps a heavy card for those that are watching live in Uruguay sort of thing. But I got into a really heated debate with Frank Trigg and Shingo over in Ryzen about the thoughts that you and I have exposed here on this podcast about my thoughts on what the UFC needs to do. And I know it's at a Ryzen show, but what MMA or UFC need to do in general to improve their product and not have shows like this. Clearly, I'm out to lunch because it got really heated at that breakfast table. But other than that, this is a show here. I mean, you went through, what, 9 fights there?
Yeah, a ton.
And it's like, who?
Meanwhile, you have a fight. I never thought that -150 Tecia Torres, who has lost 3 fights in a row, against Marina Rodriguez, a +130. That's a fight I'm really interested in. Marina came off of last year's Contender Series, had that draw with Randa Marcos, had a couple of fights pulled. She couldn't get in there with Alexa Grasso. They both got hurt earlier this year, but she did beat Jessica Aguilar. If she beats Tecia Torres, that's impressive. That's a fight worth looking at. But for Tecia Torres, if you lose 3 fights in a row, even if it's to Andrade, Jędrzejczyk, and Wiley Zhang, who's competing for the title, you don't want to lose 4 fights in a row, Joe. That looks bad, coming from a woman who a lot of people thought was going to be the person who dominated this division for years, if not a decade to come at one point. I remember in 2013, ahead of TUF, I was like, man, this woman has just dominated on the amateur circuit. She stepped in and beat Paige Van Zant, Rose Namajunas, and Felice Herrig back to back to back, and those wins aged really well. It's just not been there for her. Outside of when she got to the Andrade fight, she's never been able to put that back together. Will she be able to do it against Marina Rodriguez, who has thus far never been beaten?
It's tough to say because if you look at the 4 losses on Tecia Torres' resume, they're the top 4 women, or 3 of the top 4 women in the sport, with one of them, the fourth, competing for a title. So, and she went the distance with every single one of them. None of them finished her, right?
Yeah.
So it's safe to say Tecia Torres is, tough as nails. She can't really be finished because the best in the sport haven't been able to finish her. She's stuck in that sort of no woman's land there, right? Like trying to get to a certain level but can't, and then does good when she fights someone in the lower echelon, and then gets to the top, and it's like, oh, just can't get there, right? So I'm still picking Tecia, or I'm picking Torres in this fight.
The prop bet for the fight goes to decision, a -350. Because
Yeah,
it's Tecia
that's
Torres. Come on.
Yeah.
I am rather excited for Volkan Ozdemir against Ilir Latifi. This fight.
Finally.
God, they tried to put it together in June, and Latifi had a back injury. They tried to put it together for this past weekend, and visa issues happened. Finally, it's happening. But Ozdemir has not won a fight since getting to the mountaintop, Joe. Not only that, he's been rebooked and pulled, and like Ozdemir couldn't leave the U.S. at one point, and then he got rebooked, and both fighters got hurt before the Gustafsson fight. He does not have a win in over 2 years since Jimmy Manuwa. And since then, people have figured him out. Not only is he getting out of the first round, people are dragging him into deep waters and drowning him. Quite frankly, that's something that I think that Ilir Latifi is capable of doing, Joe. And that's why these betting odds are Ozdemir -145, Ilir Latifi +125. These are right where I think they should be. Ilir Latifi has met far different success than Ozdemir, at least when he gets in the cage, because let's be honest, the guy has been hurt a lot. He got pulled from the OSP fight originally, got pulled from the Glover fight originally, and then all this. 4 or 5 fights canceled in recent years, and he's not fought that regularly. How does all this play into Ozdemir versus Latifi, one of the more interesting fights on this show?
Well, Ozdemir, cannot lose. No bueno, Volkan. No bueno. You must win. Latifi can afford to lose if there's a loss to be handed out. So I like the odds where they're at -145. I am going to lean towards Volkan Ozdemir emerging victorious in this fight, only because I think he's, that reach advantage. I know a lot of guys have reach on Ilir Latifi in this division because he's a short, stocky fighter, but Ozdemir's back is against the wall, man. And that's a dangerous scenario. As long as he doesn't fight safe, I think he's going to put the pressure on Latifi until he eventually lands something that ends up being a finisher.
I'm with you. You also have Vicente Luque, who is just on a roll, man. Won 5 in a row. He's won 9 out of 10, which is crazy to think. His one loss throughout there is Leon Edwards, taking on Mike Perry, who is also somewhat on a roll. He's won 3, or actually he's won 2 out of 3. The third fight I'm looking at, he actually won a grappling match last month. But he beat Alex Oliveira. He's beat Paul Felder. Paul Felder, was oversized there, or overmatched in size. But you look at Vicente Luque at -230, Perry at +190. I like where those odds are as well. Vicente Luque is very good, and I think that Mike Perry is okay, and I think that's really going to shine through as this fight goes on and on. And the thing is, Joe, Luque can beat you anywhere, and he doesn't waste his time doing it. Because if he does waste his time doing it, that's when he loses. That's when he lost to Mike Graves. That's when he lost to Leon Edwards. When those fights went past the second round, the only time that he won a fight after it went to the second round, or after it went to the third round, was when he finished off Brian Barberena with seconds to spare earlier this year. Who do you think takes this one?
Oh, Luque. Vicente Luque is just going to... I'm not saying he's going to steamroll Mike Perry, but if this thing makes it 10 minutes, I will be surprised.
Yeah. So that's going to be... I would definitely rock with a Luque by finish prop bet, but I don't see one available. So
no, it just says fight goes or doesn't go to the decision.
Yeah, and that doesn't go to the decision is a -265. So what the hell? I'll tell you who I got 5-1. Liz Carmouche, a +800. Woo! Valentina Shevchenko, a -1250, and perhaps so. Valentina Shevchenko, easily the greatest flyweight women's fighter to ever do it. Not like there's a giant sample size, but come on. You know what the deal is here. You know what's up. She is just the best. Now, here's the thing. Liz Carmouche beat her 9 years ago. But a lot can change in 9 years, Joe. A whole lot.
Becoming a champion.
Becoming a champion and being in there with some of the greats. But so is Carmouche. Carmouche was real close to beating Ronda Rousey. She went to the scorecards with Miesha Tate. She's been at 135, I'm pretty sure at 135 in there against Caitlin Chikagian and beat her. She's been in there with some good fighters. Has she been in there with anybody near Valentina Shevchenko's level? Andrade, and she beat her 6 years ago, but that was a long time ago too.
Carmouche was 26 when she beat Shevchenko. Carmouche is now 35.
Yeah, man. How does this unfold for you? I think Shevchenko wins this, but damn, I'm excited for this one.
Oh, definitely excited. Yeah, I think Carmouche is going to bring the pain to her and not going to go away easily. But I think Shevchenko is just going to shine here in terms of her footwork, her skill set, just the way she unloads with her striking and her precision until she gets the opportunity to really put a hurting on somebody. Look at what she did to Jessica Ai, right? Like, that was a scary, scary scenario. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Liz Carmouche, but Shevchenko needs just one opening, and she sets it up. She sets it up beautifully. So it could get ugly for Carmouche. I do think Carmouche is going to do whatever she can to bully the champion, bully her, control her, take her down to the mat, not give her the opportunity to strike. But I just think Shevchenko's ground game and footwork footwork and takedown defense might be a little too much for Carmouche. I mean, it's MMA, anything can happen, right? But yeah, I'm leaning towards the champ in this fight here.
I'm with you there. I would put 5 on Carmouche too. I'll go ahead and do I got 5 on it picks. Got to go Carmouche plus 800 just in case, because you never know. Also, one of the bigger lines on this show is Rafael Pessoa. Do I think he's going to win? No, I definitely don't. But also, I'm going to go with Ilir Latifi at plus 125. Not only that, the plus 145 that it goes to a decision. But, Joe, what do you got going on this week?
Sable, man. When are you coming to Toronto?
I will be there 24 hours from now. 22 hours from now, actually.
All right. I believe there is a baseball game on Friday.
Friday night. Yeah, I got to miss Ring of Honor Summer Supercard for it, but getting lots of work done. There's just so much going on, Joe.
I'm going to try and attend Friday night. I have a big gathering during the day. I've got a coach on Friday night, so if one of my assistant coaches can step in, great. I will see you on Friday night. If not, my bald head will not be in attendance, and Jimmy Van will be yelling at me.
Guys, thank you all so much. Reminder, subscribe, youtube.com/Fightful MMA Boxing, where this will go up later, as well as clips from the show. Leave us a thumbs up. That stuff really, really helps us. And even if you don't listen on YouTube, please head over to our iTunes page. Leave a nice 5-star review. That helps people on iTunes find us. Because most of our audience comes from YouTube. It really goes a long way. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, we're out.